Healthcare policy is super complicated, and so is constitutional law. But here's your quick guide to what you need to know about the Supreme Court challenge to President Obama's healthcare law. 26 states are arguing that the individual mandate is an unprecedented expansion of federal power and is unconstitutional. It took months and months in Congress for this law to pass before President Obama signed it in 2010, and the Supreme Court is going to take their time with this case. They've allotted 6 hours for arguments here, and that's compared to about an hour usually for most cases. It's the most time since 1966 for a Supreme Court case, and that's a span that's included Bush v. Gore, Roe v. Wade, and the United States v. Richard Nixon. Here's the big question the court is considering. Can the federal government force citizens to buy insurance from private companies? The U.S. Constitution has what's called the Commerce Clause that regulates commerce between states, but the question is, does that extend to include an individual mandate for citizens to buy insurance or face a penalty? There's also a budget question. Does the federal government have the power to expand Medicaid to include more low-income adults? Medicaid is paid for by both the federal government and states, so this expansion will eventually increase costs at the state level. There's also a technical question. The individual mandate doesn't go into effect until the year 2014, so there's a question of whether the court can even rule on this until then. Can you declare a law unconstitutional if it's not in effect yet? Finally, there's the question of if any of this is declared unconstitutional, if the whole law is thrown out, or just individual provisions and the rest of the law still stands. This law has been winding through the courts almost since passage, and there have been mixed decisions. For example, a federal appeals court in August in Atlanta found that the individual mandate was unconstitutional, but allowed the rest of the law to stand. A month before that, another appeals court in Cincinnati said the individual mandate was constitutional. And then there was another decision in a federal appeals court in Richmond that said we can't decide on this until 2014 when the individual mandate is in effect. So as in any Supreme Court case, this all comes down to the question of what the U.S. Constitution allows. The Obama administration is arguing that absolutely the Commerce Clause allows this requirement for health insurance. Their power to regulate interstate commerce includes the power to regulate insurance. And they point out that uninsured patients are already driving up the cost of care for other people because insured people are paying for it. So the court is set to decide in either late June or early July, so plenty of time for it to remake the presidential debate before the elections in November.